Hello, this is Grandmaster Jerry Fancy Fontenot with another episode of MMA Power Talk. Sport Karate Illustrated at the Dojine, sponsored by you, man. Yes, so we had a conversation a few weeks ago with a gentleman by the name of Manny Reyes, who was representing the Latinos, and so was I, obviously. And one of the things that we spoke about was the simple fact that there weren't too many people that we fight with in the past that was rated at the high level of point karate. So back in the 80s, myself, 90s, and so on and so forth. So the gentleman we're going to speak to today, his father and I have been friends for quite a while. Some people are born into martial arts. Some people get exposed to it for different reasons. But we're going to find out exactly why. One of the top fighters for the last few years, from a teenager to an adult, which that in itself is not an easy thing to do. Plus, in addition to that, one of the true kickers, from what I understand, very few that I can actually respect today because of the skill set and the work ethic. Without further ado, we have Mr. Justice Ortiz. Are you there, sir?
Yes, sir, I'm here. What's up?
All right, cool. So what we do here, we talk about the past, we talk about the present, and we talk about the future. So in a nutshell, in addition to that, this is also my personal 300. If I went to war and all I had was 300 people that I can have on my army, my team, like the movie 300, Mr. Ortiz, you are on my team.
Ah, thank you. Well, I'm honored.
I'm
honored to be
very welcome.
On the team.
It's a nice list, I tell you right now.
Well, I mean, I'm honored to be a part of it. I mean, just so everybody knows, I appreciate that I'm on there talking to you. I actually looked up to you as far as kickers go, you know.
Well, I appreciate that. But let's get the timeline here. What was your motivation, your desperation, or your inspiration to be involved in martial arts? Now, I'm going to put myself on mute for a second so you won't hear me, because it's not about me, it's about you. We want to find out who and what got you involved in the martial arts. And then, obviously, I will interject necessarily. So take it away, Mr. Ortiz.
Definitely. My dad, Alberto Ortiz, is my inspiration, my motivation. He is actually my instructor. So basically, I was born into it. You know, as soon as I was walking, he had me stretching and started kicking. But you know, my true motivation was that, you know, my dad was a really good fighter, you know, back in his time, but I wanted to take it to the next level. I wanted to be that person to carry out my dad's last name, to be recognized, and you know, even though I'm short, you know, I wanted to say to everybody, no matter about the height, no matter about the weight, you know, I can do it. And at the same time, you start seeing in the world, the point fighting world, that everybody wants to blitz. And I'm a kicker. So I wanted to prove as well that kickers can win. And kickers can do, as long as you apply the technique correctly and the skill set is correct, then a kicker can win. And so basically that was, you know, in a nutshell, that's my motivation. That was my inspiration. That was why, you know, I'm the person I am today.
All right. Now, the question is, style and ways to officially start taking lessons. I know your father's stretching you out like I've done with my children, but when do you remember taking your official classes or your first memories, and what style is it that your actual father teaches?
My first official class, well, my style is Shotokan Karate. My dad first taught me in his basement, and I remember my first lesson like it was yesterday, and it was very, very, very simple, very basic. My dad had me in the basement. You know, he asked me if I wanted to do it. I said yes. You know, I wanted to do it. I was excited. I was I think about 3.5 years old, about to turn 4, and he grabs my leg. He puts it on top of the couch, and at the time, of course, the couch looked about 10 feet tall compared to me. And he puts it on top of the couch, and he goes, "Okay, hold it there. Don't drop it." And, of course, I'm over here shaking. I'm tearing up. It's cramping. I'm hurting. I'm only 4 years old, and I'm in pain, and I didn't drop it. I'm sitting there holding it because, well, A, I didn't, you know, want my dad to get upset. That's one. And B, I didn't want, you know, to let myself down, you know, even at that age.
put that. I put myself on mute there. I apologize. Okay, so that's interesting. So, how long was it before? Because if I remember correctly, your father also has a school now. When was it that he actually opened? What I'm trying to do is just get some type of timeline here so we can get to the present.
Definitely.
And obviously, that's wonderful. So basically, you started training even before your father had his official school. So when did he open the school? And you started transitioning from there.
Definitely. My dad opened the school when I was about, I would have to say, 6 or 7 years old. He started in his basement and realized, he had a passion for it, and he's doing well at it, and so he opened up a location in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and that's in Boston. From there, we were on the 3rd floor, and we moved to Somerville, but actually, no, not in Somerville. We moved in Cambridge, and I was about, I think I would have to say about 7 to 8 years old, maybe around that. So from Roxbury when I was about 5 or 6 to Cambridge when I was about 7 or 8, and then he moved to Somerville with the location he has right now when I was around 9 to 10 years old. I would have to say 9 to 10 years old, and ever since then he's been at that location, and it's been a nice big location, 2 floors. He's doing very well. He's doing very successful at his school.
Well, that's great. Okay, so now let's talk about when was your first competition, because everything changes. Obviously, training is one thing. Training in the basement is cool, and then you go to an official karate school, and then at some point you have to compete. When was your first memories of competition?
My first competition was when I was 6 years old. It was 1999 Battle of Boston, hosted by Pedro Xavier and Master Joe Pina. And of course, Pedro Xavier is also one of my I idolize him. He's one of the top kickers out there. That was my first tournament. I remember taking 2nd place in sparring, and I was complaining because I was like, Dad, it's hitting me in my arm. He keeps hitting me in my arm. He's like, you got to fight. Keep complaining. But as a kid in competition, I didn't do so well. Actually, my dad really never pushed competition on me, and I was always glad that he didn't, because I see a lot of kids getting pushed in competition right now. At 9 years old, they're traveling like crazy, doing a competition every weekend, by the time they become a teenage, they get burnt out. So my dad really never pushed the competition on me. So like as a kid, I was never winning like that.
Gotcha. All right, so now you're in competition. You're 6 years old. When was it that? Let's talk about a little bit of what would be your memorable experiences as a spectator, even before maybe getting into the adult division.
Definitely. I have to say, my dad would have me watch people like Raymond Daniels, and every time he would put me to the side and say, hey, you need to watch these guys, and he would have me watch, and I would see people like him. A couple of times I'd see Mike Pombero get out there, and I see all these great fighters, and but my dad wouldn't tell me just to watch them, just to be like, oh wow, look at these guys, they're fighting. My dad would actually tell me to watch them, to study them. My dad was a big advocate of being a student of the game, and that's one of my big things is I tell people that instead of training harder, we need to start training smarter and start studying more. And that was me. I was very big on studying. I used to just watch them, and I used to like, oh, Dad, well, he does this and that like that. And my dad will have me analyze, hey, did you see how he did that? Did you see when he did that? Why did he do that? Was it because the person had his hands down? Was it because the person overstepped? Was it the person faked and made the person jump and then he took off? Stuff like that. It was very, very. My dad was very meticulous about that, and that kind of rubbed off on me. And it was funny because here we are, fast forwards. I'm fighting these same guys, and I have to. And I'm fighting them, and, because of the fact that I was studying them, I end up beating them.
All right, so that, and again, when it comes down to it, there's generations of people, obviously, that came before either you or I. And
right.
What I've done here in Dojine is educate people on the simple facts. For example, when people say blitz, in reality, they're using the wrong terminology for a technique that bridges the gap from A to Z. Raymond Daniels, I have never in his entire life seen him blitz. He does what's called a dive bomb. Dive bomb is an aerial technique which becomes a lunge. A blitz is what you see Ralph Levine do, where you actually take a step and you cross. These two terminologies have been called now a blitz as in getting from point A to point B. So people using the wrong words. He's blitzing. That's like someone who's a B-boy and everybody else in the rest of the world is calling us break dancers because they don't freaking know. Now, it's not the fault of the people today. It's the fault of the people yesteryear that never documented it. The term blitz is not even called that until Nasty Anderson starts to call it a blitz. But way before Nasty Anderson, the Chuck Norris operation was doing it, and at the time they actually called it was a cross step, or as it considered a slide up punch, a slide up jab, vertical punch, and that comes from the Chuck Norris operation as far back as the late 60s and early 70s. So someone who's like Howard the Flash Jackson, if you ever see him, there's one or two videos out there, you see that he's doing the blitz, which is pretty much, if you look at it, it's a back fist to a reverse punch. What they're doing is called a dive bomb, which was mastered by them, meaning if your left starts in front and you lunge forward in the air, whether you're throwing one punch or two, that in itself is called a dive bomb, and that was created in terms of really named like that by Nasty Anderson. So when I was coming up, I learned how to blitz from Billy Blank, and I learned how to do a dive bomb for Nasty Anderson. But then I was lucky enough to be a kicker. And I got to say it like that because I come up originally from a long fist kung fu, and then I got into Muay Thai and Tang Soo Do back in 76, and I started in 74. Now, I can show you historical videos and the fact some people from New York had never seen those techniques, and I was the one that was doing them in the New York area. Because New York was, when you say Shotokan, New York was a Shotokan, Goju area.
Definitely.
That being the case, then I had to fight against these guys, and they were punchers.
Right.
I had a kick, because to me, in every Kung Fu movie, the counter to a punch is a kick.
Yes, sir.
So if I'm fighting today and all these guys are trying to throw punches, well, I'm going to be kicking them. If they were all kickers, I'll be punching them. Okay, that's the strategy. But we live in the world of copycats. It's called biting. And I come from the hip-hop culture. You cannot bite or copy somebody's move.
Bite. Yep.
Okay? Well, today, the fighters have been biters. So they are. They biters. There's two styles of fighting, and pretty much they're about the same. And it's be first. The technique that's called a side kick, that they call a deep side kick, doesn't even lock the knee. But if that's for karate, then what we're going to do is leave that alone, because we don't want to be old player haters and say that they're not doing it right. Because I know how that was when I was throwing techniques and things, and guys from the years before was like trying to diss us. Like, try to respect them, but don't diss me. So if that's for karate, then I never did sport karate. Neither did your father. We did a thing called sniper fighting. Sharp, precise, and on point. Coming from Shotokan, that means you know how to sweep. You know how to sweep.
Yes.
Shotokan.
Back leg.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Someone picks up the leg, you jam them, take them down, punch them. Take their heart out.
Yep.
Try to kick them into China. That's what Shotokan was known for. To counter a so-called Taekwondo fighter's kicks. And that's where styles were separate and different. And that's enough. At Dojine, we show the difference in lineage, legacy. I recently interviewed a gentleman by the name of Master John Natividad. Who is he? He literally is the first person, or I should say the best kicking student that Chuck Norris ever had. They did a documentary back in 1974 that was financed by Elvis Presley, rest in peace. And if you go to dojine.com/Natividad, which I'll send you the link, you see him throwing multiple kicks while on tour for the United States team with Benny Akitas and a bunch of other people fighting in Belgium back in 1974. He throws a spinning hook kick. A guy grabs him, shoots the back leg, and throws him down into the floor and gets the point. A technique that today, a spinning hook, spinning wheel, spinning back, is starting to be used even in MMA. But the MMA fighters just run away from it as opposed to go in, right, grab it, take the back leg out, and take the person down. Right? You know that coming from Shotokan. Someone looks at you, they think already you're Taekwondo style. That's what they're going to think. Bill Superfoot Wallace became the most famous of the so-called kickers. So this is a question to you.
Yes.
What style do you think he is, Bill Superfoot Wallace? Most people think Taekwondo, right?
Most people think Taekwondo. I believe I know he's a karate practitioner. I think he's, I'm not sure if he did Shitaru.
Very close. Shorin-ryu. Because in Okinawa, that's where he trained in Shorin-ryu. Same thing as Mr. Rest in Peace, Joe Louis. Right? Joe Louis. So again, the fact is that the reason why you, Mr. Ortiz, is beating other people that might be taller and might be stronger, they don't have what you have, which is called a legacy. Your father's giving you information. He's your coach. Doesn't matter if you're on a team. It doesn't freaking matter. He's your instructor. He's your coach. He knows your abilities and he knows your limitations.
Right.
Him coming from my generation, he doesn't like this crap. He doesn't like it. However, regardless of what those other people do, don't you dare do it, Justice. You know, that's exactly what he's probably telling you. Doesn't matter what the hell they do. You don't be a biter. You don't sell out. And you being Puerto Rican, make sure they can really fight. Because, si no, te voy a partir la cara.
Right.
You know? Now, those of you who listen, please understand this. When it's all said and done, in the hip-hop culture, I'm going to use this parallel, there's a move called a windmill. A windmill was invented at age 13, Crazy Legs, known as Crazy Legs, Mr. Richard Colon, invented a move called the continuous backspin. One of his students, Little Lep, got down with a crew called, initially they were called the Floor Lords, and then they changed their name over to the New York City Breakers. In the movie Beat Street, that's where you see all of the members of the New York City Breakers do the same thing that at the time they were calling a windmill. One leg up, no hands, so on and so forth. In other words, all they did was bite. And the entire crew did the same thing. In the meantime, everyone on the Rocksteady crew looked original. But when the mainstream wanted to see what we were doing, they called it all breakdancing. And they included locking, popping, and boogieing, 2 different styles, 3 different styles, 4 different styles, up rocking, 5 different styles. And when people don't know, they just start to generalize it. For example, I'm in Florida right now. I'm Spanish. That must be Cuban. I'm in the New York area. I'm Spanish. I'm Puerto Rican.
I'm Puerto Rican.
And we go over to Texas, Chicago, and California, then we all Mexicans. People just like to generalize it. So my point is this. In order for sport karate, sport martial arts, point karate, whatever you want to call it, at one time they even called it tournament karate. In order for it to progress, you got to have a timeline. Timeline. You mentioned something that was very, very incredible to me. When you notice how people have been pretty much abused by Little League parents or soccer moms, except that they replaced the soccer with the karate. And every week they're dragging the kids from event to event. Not for the kids, because the kids aren't happy. As a matter of fact, you know when the kids are happy? When the event is over and they get the chance to go into the pool. That's when they're happy. But these people have done this with the good intentions of maybe you'll be in the movie someday. That's the way it's been sold. And by the time they're 15, 16, 17 years old, they've been dragged around for 8, 9, 10 years. They don't have any fun any longer. So they do this thing called retire at age 21. Because at this point, mom or dad can't tell them what to do.
Right.
And they figure, I don't want to do this. Then another thing happens is that they're not earning any income. They're superstars at a tournament, but they're stinking broke after the tournament.
Right.
Where they don't get that so-called praising. And then reality hits in, where you're 21, you're 22, you've been doing this stuff for years, and you don't have a pot to piss in or win a tutorial out of, but you have all the attitude in the world because people praise you, blow smoke up your rear when you're at a karate tournament, whether you're doing a seminar or teaching a class. But when it's all said and done, you have no car, you have no house, you don't have anything. And you say, man, if I would have invested this time in schooling, then maybe I would have become successful at that. Hence, Luis Delgado, the first Puerto Rican that was my role model, who at age 25 did an article, and he was very upset. Because he said, if I would have invested a good amount of time in something else, I probably would have been successful by now. But karate doesn't give you anything. Now, mind you, that's not completely true, but the way he was trying to do it was the truth. At age 22, in 1988, I was the number one fighter in the nation up until the last tournament of the year. I was sponsored by American Airlines, and I had a karate school. Now, this is my short poem that I did in 1992 when things were different on stage when everybody was there, over 1,000 business school owners worldwide. And it's right on YouTube. For those of you who want to always test, the facts are there. I don't have to lie. No one's my girlfriend, so I can tell you the truth. No. So, in 1988, just about, I literally was sponsored by American Airlines, and I was the number one fighter in the nation. Every weekend I could take a short vacation, but I couldn't keep up with inflation. So I had to change my occupation to power persuasion. And because I took some action, I was soon on the mansion, and I'm still a champion. That's what I said in 1992. At that time, I already had 300 students in one location in the Bronx, teaching what was called sport karate. So I had New York's first sport karate training center, where people came from all over. So if anybody wanted to learn what I had learned from Billy Blanks and Nasty Anderson and the footwork and the fake positions and angles, I learned that from Recipes Joe Louis. But I did it with a Puerto Rican from the Bronx that grew up in the hip-hop culture flavor that was mimicking Bruce Lee with Spider-Man and having the attitude of the Incredible Hulk. That's how we created this character called Fearless Sassy, an alter ego. Obviously, when we have a conversation with Mr. Ortiz, he's a humble, quiet guy. If that guy walked into the ring, he would never score 1 point. They will annihilate him. All of us go from Clark Kent to Superman in order to perform.
Yes, sir.
Would you agree, sir?
Yes, sir.
Is that true? Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
Without that ability to switch up to that person, we would never be even heard of. Now, mind you, if it wasn't for your father, I would probably assume you would not be the same person in more reasons than one.
Definitely.
Your father's hardcore. Even when he's giving a compliment, his face is tense. He can't help it.
Definitely.
Right?
Well, yeah.
He loves you, but you're not sure about it.
Always has, yeah, no matter what,
Am I wrong?
He has something to critique. Definitely.
Right. In the meantime, the times that you have seen me interact with your father is a whole different monster, right?
Of course.
Laughing. Sharing. Hardcore. Because I keep it real, and so does your father. Am I wrong?
Definitely.
And the fact of the matter is that I'm gonna make one statement here, and there's gonna be a question to you.
Okay.
First of all, let me just say this: you're representing, and I appreciate it. Muchas gracias. Okay, that's what I'm saying first. Second, I'm saying this. This is a question. Imagine Madison Square Garden, ESPN TV, and the grand champion, not counting the division win, $2,500. Question, is this the future or the past?
Well, that actually sounds like the past.
Isn't that something? Doesn't make any sense. Right. So if that's the past, then that must have been the future.
Well, what we would say is like, oh, wow, that's something to look forward to. But those who really know the history of sport karate or martial arts in general, they know that was already done. Even on the sold out crowd, and then they had sponsors like Budweiser and all that other stuff in there. So I mean.
Well, the specific event that I'm talking about is when my jaw got broken on ESPN TV versus Billy Blank, sponsored by Budweiser. And the 2,500 was the grant.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Was that on the money?
Again, some of these things are called rumors, but the people who've been there, done that know the difference, haven't said anything to anybody. We're living in the dark ages of martial arts. People think they know. They don't know jack shit, but it's because the people haven't documented themselves. So let me explain why I'm so pumped up about this thing. If I see an opportunity, that's phenomenal. In 1990, I started hanging out with this guy named Richie. Jamaican dude, that's Crazy Legs. But he was known as Crazy Legs before that, meaning a guy who at age 14, 15 years old had a guest list of over 100 people at the Roxy because he was one of the top dancers and the number one crew in the world, the Rocksteady crew. But he was Richie again, working in a place called Jack LaLanne, which was owned by Bally's, so today is Bally's Health Club. And I said, nah, man, you ain't freaking Richie. That's Clark Kent. You're Superman. Crazy Legs. And for 6 months, I kept saying things similar to that. Then I mentioned one thing. I said, Legs, rock steady in the 90s. And those are the 6 words, Legs, rock steady in the 90s, that has made him many, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in the historical books, I'm the guy that got Crazy Legs to bring rocksteady back. Hence, you can't watch too many music videos without someone breaking, meaning b-boying. And the hip-hop culture, as known worldwide, coming from the Bronx, the people who know it the least amount are the Americans, who still, when I do a little boogie move, they go, hey, he's breakdancing. I'm like, man, you're freaking culture vultures. Now when I look at point karate, sport karate, what would be techniques that were developed by Americans, not the Japanese. The Funakoshi freaking know how to blitz. See what I'm saying? Let's keep it real. Yamaguchi tampoco. So this was Americans that developed it, which American is not a particular color or creed, it's people of similar mind. Right. So in America, the same way, like if you think about it, some of the best b-boys today, breakers, they're from Korea, they're from Japan, they're from France, they're from the entire world.
Yeah, yes, definitely. They're not.
Okay.
Americans are not doing so well right now.
Here we go. In the meantime, same thing with volleyball, which was invented in California. But on any given day, the Brazilians and the Koreans, it depends on men, women, and children. My point is that the relevance that we have in terms of adding to the curriculum of so-called martial arts, fighting, comes from America. Started in the 60s and continues to develop in some aspects.
Right.
Now, let's think about hip-hop for culture, because it's interesting. A thing is happening in hip-hop the same way it happened in point karate. Now, again, I'm going back and you guys are saying, this old bastard talking about 19 this and 19 that. Yeah, recognize. This is a historical fact. And I'm not the only person saying this because I have over 50 interviews that people have said this already. And these people actually have more students than the 20-something-year-old that's doing just seminars. So the future is brighter than ever. And the movement is happening worldwide. And I'm happy to say that I'm the pusher of it. Because enough is enough. This is nonsense. The year that Billy Blanks or anybody who won Grand Champion of the Budweiser tournament made 2,500. That same year in Bermuda, whoever won Grand there made 5,000. 1985, 86, 87, and 88. $5,000. Grand champion. That's not counting the division win. As an example, in 1988, at the Bermuda Invitational Grand, now, how much did it cost me to get there? Nothing. I qualified by winning at another tournament. What? So you win there, and they give you all expenses paid to the next event where you can win $5,000. Sounds pretty good. Hotel and food included. Hotel and food included. So I'm in Bermuda, and I took second place in forms, Korean forms. It was $300. Charlie Lee took first. He won $500, and then he still went for the grand, which was $5,000 for the grand. Imagine that. Forms. This is forms. Now, if people know this history, maybe they wouldn't be happy with the state of the martial arts today. But they don't know shit.
Right.
Damn thing.
No. This is why some of the reasons why we advocate for the push of, more publicity and more for the.
But the problem is this: the majority of the people
so greedy.
Well, it's not even greedy. Let me give you an example. The promoters are not greedy. The promoters are broke themselves because their business model does not work. There are no sponsors. Period. They're just
be true, but there are promoters out there that definitely get their sponsors, definitely get their money, but still don't want to put up the money because they want to meet the minimum that is set for standard of what to put out as far as money.
All right, let me give you an overview. You're correct. There's always going to be an exception to a rule, but the business structure does not work. And if it did work, people would be getting paid a percentage as an industry. The way, anyway, that's a whole other subject matter that I have a business model that has been proven that we're going to overcome that and even supersede what we've ever done in the past. And I'll tell you an example. Do you know the manual of how to run a successful martial arts tournament? Do you have it?
No, I don't.
No, you know why? It doesn't exist. Now, how stupid is that? So here you got people, like what you said, who have used different forms of ways to communicate with sponsors and other things, and they've all kept it a secret. So the industry doesn't have common practices or best practices to be successful, so like that we can all benefit. So who's losing? We are losing. So what I'm doing, along with a bunch of other people worldwide, is we're systematizing every aspect of being successful, even when it comes to stretching or kicking. One of the most idiotic things to me as a student was me following the formula of a person trying to teach me how to get the split when they didn't have the freaking split. So at some point I said, well, you don't have the freaking split, and I would get pissed off. They would push me and hurt me. So what I started doing, I started developing my own way to stretch. And I used posture, alignment, and gravity. So when my students had the splits, and people say, oh, my God, and then they really got disrespectful. They say, oh, you're natural. Natural? You know how much I train? No. Think I just train when I'm freaking in the school? I train at home more, in my bedroom, watching television. I'm in the split doing homework. What are you talking about? But this is what people like to say. Oh, you're just natural.
Not at all. Not at all. No, it took me
How insane is that?
A lot of work. Man,
God gives you a talent, but you have to cultivate that talent, right?
Afternoon, night, I used to train like hell.
Oh, so that's the secret. So you mean the secret to getting better at something is to actually practice? Is that what you're telling me?
Definitely. Well, a lot of people say practice makes perfect, but I tell them that, that they got to throw the word perfect out the door, because then...
Yeah, it's perfect practice that makes perfect.
I always say practice makes permanent.
Yeah, well, practice makes habit, and if you do it to the point where you like it, and it produces the results you want, then that's when it becomes permanent, because permanent changes according to your abilities, right? So at one point you reached this maximum, and that was permanent. No, it wasn't. You thought it was permanent. It was temporary, but it was the result.
That's it.
Right, you got to keep it moving. Exactly. If you don't put the heat,
perfection is an unlimited goal.
Well, exactly. Perfection is a matter of opinion too, because everyone's going to look at that as perfect. So that's all. Now you get on the beat, buddy. Keep it basic here. But you're right. It's called standards. And when you raise your standards and you do what's necessary, it seems like you end up doing more than most. Because this is the statement. Right. What you practice in private, you get paid for in public. So those extra hours, I used to train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at my school. In my house, I trained every day, even before or after classes. So when we're playing cops and robbers, I'm doing karate while playing in the park, you know. That's the way we play. So the point is that you when God gives you talents, you still have to cultivate it. Michael Jordan became the best because he had talent, but his work ethic is what made the difference. But sometimes you say, man, I have the talent and I got the work ethic, but it doesn't make financial sense. And that's how we've lost so many of our talented people to other things, such as a job. You know what I'm saying? But here I am, 1988. I'm the number 1 fighter in the nation at the time. The last tournament back then was the U.S. Open. I finished number 3, and that's a whole other subject matter. I don't think the world was ready for a Puerto Rican from the Bronx to be the number 1 fighter in the country. So they did whatever they took. And I can say it like that because I freaking know. It doesn't matter. I went from number 1 to number 3, but this was the difference. September of that year, I had 50 students paying me $60 a month. My rent at the school was $2,000. My home rent was $1,000. So obviously, there's a problem. So I'm 2.5 months behind rent. I come back from winning grand champion, which at the time, it was a grand. It was $1,000 plus a division at the World Pro Am Nationals, which was a NASCAR tournament back in the day. Steve Bill Curran was the promoter. And I'm at the airport, and I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do with this $1,000? Am I going to pay that bill or this bill of food, you know? And I bumped into Joy Santa Maria, and she reminded me of a company that was teaching people how to do business. And I had heard it out of my friends that they were doing really well. And I said, well, you know what? I'm getting ready to be evicted. Maybe now I can listen, right? And they had this thing where they say, double your gross in 90 days. And I said, that sounds like a freaking scam. I'm not going to suck. You know what are you talking about? I'm 22 years old. I'm not able to articulate like maybe I do now. But I had talent, and I was frustrated, and I didn't want to get embarrassed and humiliated after borrowing and stealing to open up a karate school, that I was going to have to close it. So at that point, maybe I can listen to these people. So I went from 50 students September to 150 students December of the same year, charging more, not less. So I charged the same $60 a month, but then it was $199 down and $60 a month. So just on my initial 100 new people times roughly $200, that was $20,000 there alone up front, which was more than I was making collectively. And then I still had them on a 1-year agreement that they were paying me $60 a month. So my first fiscal year, meaning from March 88 to March of 89, I had 200 students. So I didn't care that I finished number 3 and not number 1, because the guy that was number 1 still lived with his mother. And that wasn't my goal at age 22. By the time I'm fighting in 91, I have 300 students. And I never have less than $1,000 in my pocket. Kind of stupid, but that's what I had. In 92, I made my first $200,000 of personal income out of one school during the recession in the Bronx, and we were only charging $80 a month, but I had a formula of success. So a lot of people knew Fancy, the guy that was at tournaments, because I was rated nationally every year, beating all those freaking guys, sometimes back-to-back on the same damn night, humiliating them with freaking all types of stupid techniques, right? However, I was never, ever on a team too long, because when it was all said and done, martial arts is an individual sport. It's not a team sport. And that's my belief. However, I was trying to tell people, and I did, Chris Rapo, Pedro Xavier, all those kids that today have made some of them martial arts millionaires. I let them know that you do not have to be poor. You can be a successful business owner in a part-time business because you're only going to work about 5 or 6 hours a day. That's what karate is. If you run a crazy school, you're teaching from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and that's not even every day. Most schools have 90% of the business between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock. So that's a part-time business, giving people high fives and teaching them how to have confidence. It's like the best business in the world. So once I discovered that you don't have to earn, you can earn money without kissing no one's butt, and I was making more money than any doctor and lawyer, or in my thing, it was the drug dealers. I was making more money than my cousins, the drug dealers, but didn't have to go to jail. So I actually kept the money. So if they made more money than me, they were still going to eventually get killed or go to jail, so that means they would have to pay the lawyers all that money. I kept mine. That formula still works to this very day. Mighty Joe Rivera, my student, on any bad month makes about $50,000 right now. About 50. Well, I sold them a school that used to average 25 on a bad month back in 1997. That also did $355,850 in 1992. So during that time, martial arts changed and teams started to become the big thing. The only reason people got on teams is because they couldn't afford to do their own stuff. It's the reason. Or because the structure of business didn't exist for a competitor to be able to sustain a lifestyle by earning income. There's no business model for that. I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, and I apologize. Guys, the reason I'm sharing this information is because I care about martial arts. My son is 32 years old, so that means there's a good possibility the majority of you listening to this right now could be my child. And as a parent, I cannot do anything but be straight and honest. You guys have the greatest potential, but potential normally means you haven't done shit yet. So if I give you strategies that maybe you're able to tap into it, you'll be able to overcome, overshadow, and explode any nonsense like only making $350,000 in one school or competing and earning $5,000. All that stuff is nothing, because I tell you right now, if you do something like ride a bicycle, which normally, you learn how to do that. But some of you can ride a bicycle straight line, or some of you can do it and flip, and people are making millions of dollars riding a freaking bicycle. Am I wrong, sir?
Yeah,
and they're on television. Millions of dollars. Who would ever think that riding a bicycle, you would make millions of dollars? That's the world we live in. Trust me, people will be making millions of dollars doing martial arts because the business strategy and structure can be used in just about any industry.
Right.
Is martial arts known worldwide? Absolutely. Does it have a history? Yes. Is it used in mainstream media? Yes. I dare anybody to watch 5 action movies and not have 8 of them, when they come to the fight scene, do martial arts. Would you agree? Mr. Ortiz?
Yeah.
Would you agree? So we are the most exploited industry in the world. Martial arts. But if I ask anybody in mainstream media, mention one martial artist, they're going to see some movie star and not a real martial artist. And then the people we have seen in tournaments that competed, that went to the movies, aren't even the fighters. They're the form guys, which doesn't make sense either, does it? However, the most successful of all time in movies that actually earned money and continues to earn money was a fighter, just like you and I. That's who he really is, and that's Mr. Chuck Norris. So there is a strategy to be a fighter and be in movies and earn millions of dollars. So when people turn around and say, well, we're going to just copy somebody else, the people who did forms that are in movies today are part of stunt teams. None of them are the stars.
Right.
Unless they learn how to be an actor. Can't be in movies without being an actor. If people choose to go that way, I suggest learn that. But when they go acting, they forget about karate. And then we see a very good friend of mine, quite often in TV commercials, but he's a fat bastard now. Because David Douglas does not look good. I'm sorry. And I called him already. He better start working out. And I see him all the time in commercials. God bless him. Got to work out. The greatest potential of superheroes. Now, do you have a story, Ortiz? Why aren't you? Do you know anybody that you grew up with that sold drugs? I got tons of them. Definitely. Do you know anyone who went to jail?
Yeah, I know plenty of people.
So we have so many examples. So you know what? Your autobiography is called important. against all odds, how to still be successful doing something positive, regardless of what your family and friends were doing. World champion,
Definitely.
Mr. Justin Ortiz. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean,
I would rather see that story. You hear me? I'm 50 years old this January. And I would rather see your story on television, bro. Your story. I see you already as a little kid in your father's basement. I see you developing. That has as much value as something stupid that's on TV that's a reality show.
Right.
And if we have people worldwide that I can address, if I say Michael Venom Page, do you know who that is?
Yep.
Have you? Okay, so give me a little bit of what you know about Michael Page.
Michael Page is a fighter from the UK. He was a point fighter. Well, in their case, they do a kickboxing system. Currently, right now, doing MMA, and actually is successful in his MMA bouts.
Is he beating people or is he humiliating people?
He is humiliating people. He's making
Why?
people look stupid. Only applying.
Why? Why, Ortiz? Come on, tell me why.
He's applying the sport karate fighting to his MMA fighting, which none of the MMA fighters know how to handle or know how to adjust to. So
interesting.
Simple things like timing and distance. He hits people with like a crossover blitz, and then we'll step back, and all of a sudden they don't know what they're hitting or what's hitting them. Even stuff like as in a double leg kick, maybe a kick to the body, kick to the head. No MMA fighter really throws more than one kick. So when they get
Mr. Ortiz, listen, my name is Jerry Fontenot, and I'm managing this MMA fighter. He's getting ready to fight for the title. Now, we're training for a guy named Michael Venom Page. We hear that you've been pretty successful with this. Can you come in and join our training camp and be the karate coach? What would you say? Hell yeah. Because they got a jiu-jitsu instructor.
Well, you got to say yes, but you always got to say, well, what's in it for me? I got to know.
No. They're going to pay you. Don't forget about that. You get paid in a week, but you don't get paid in a year in karate because if you're helping a person be a champion and they're bringing you on as an expert, you know how much money you get? Whatever you negotiate.
All right, definitely.
So you say, yeah, I'll do it for $50,000. And they'll say, cool, because we're paying the wrestling coach that much or more. We're paying the jiu-jitsu coach that much or more. Because remember, you're going to join the camp. It may take 3 months, 2 months. They're going to travel. They're going to pay all your expenses, and then you're going to get paid for your expertise. So after they finish doing the strength and conditioning with that guy, that means once a day for about an hour, he's with you. But you know what?
Right.
Wait a second. He's with you, but what you're teaching him, nobody else can actually do. I hate to hear this nonsense. All the time I hear this. Oh, we couldn't find anybody who they could spar against to mimic Steve Wonderboy Thompson, to mimic Machida, to mimic Michael Venom Page. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Plenty of people out there.
But they don't have any authority because they do not respect what we've done because what we've done has changed so much.
Right.
So what happens when you have to go to a tournament and to score on somebody, you actually have to close your hand. And when you close the hand, the guy gets dropped. He gets up, but he gets dropped. What happens when the person comes at you and you hit him with a side kick and you actually lock the knee and actually pump to throw a real Yakazuki, or I should say, Yokogeri, a real side kick, not just picking up the leg, having the guy run into it, putting your hand up and getting a free point, which is what people are teaching in the seminars. They're teaching that in seminars. Oh, my God. They call them intensives. It's disgusting. Teaching people how to cheat. But more importantly, the side kick is a technique that breaks ribs. Yes?
Right.
It breaks the rib, right? I have not seen yet.
One of the most effective kick.
Can you throw that side kick to the face?
Defensively. Huh?
Can you throw it to the face?
Oh, definitely.
Can you hit somebody with a side kick to the face?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Now, how scary is that?
That's very scary.
You can kill them.
You
can knock them out, right?
Someone does it correct and put a heel right into it. Oh.
Okay. Have you seen that in MMA yet? No.
Nope.
Can you teach somebody? Yes.
Yes.
There's so many techniques that can be used that aren't being used yet. You see the question? The statement there is yet. So now if you become one of the people who join these teams to teach an hour a day with the guy who's fighting for the title, that means the rest of the day, what are you doing? Whatever the hell you want, right? You might be doing the how-to videos and so on and so forth. You might be doing seminars. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be working all freaking day. You don't have to. He's working with a wrestling coach. He's working with a lifting coach. He's working with a strength conditioning coach. He's working with a jiu-jitsu guy. He's working with a boxer. There's a whole team around this. Why? Because there's a big enough budget that he's going to make a few $1 million. Because the guy that you're showing this to could be George St. Pierre for his comeback fight.
Right.
That's possible. And why would they use you? Because you're the giant killer. Even though they're not using it as that. But that would be a good label for you. Or am I wrong?
Well, yeah, that's what I do. Everyone is taller than me.
Right, so this is what you do. So Justin, the giant killer Ortiz, is joining our team. And then when you're warming up with these people, how many times do you hit them? It's not even funny. Someone's embarrassing, right? And then they say, that's what we want to do. Oh. So now, see, the reason I'm saying this is because there was one guy named Phil Nurse. Phil Nurse did Muay Thai. He's originally from London. He relocated to New York. A big competitor, but made more money as being the Thai boxing coach for everybody, including George St. Pierre. You don't see much of him anymore. Real little guy, bald, they're all bald, black, earring, and his first fighter that won was Nick Serra. And he's from Long Island in New York, Then he became the go-to guy for Muay Thai. He's the one that, if you look at when B.J. Penn was fighting against George St. Pierre, George St. Pierre did a real blitz. He did a real blitz in the air, which was a dive bomb, two techniques, which is really a point karate technique. It really comes back, believe it or not, goes back to Taekwondo. Guys like Mike Warren was doing this in the 1970s, where they keep that over tight and they jump on top of you through a reverse punch. In other words, very similar to a Superman punch, as they called it, which we call that dive bomb. Anyway, my point was that he became the most important person to have on your team, so he can teach you how to strike with kicks and punches like nobody else can or could. And again, no disrespect intended, because I love to watch Michael Page fight MMA. And to me, Michael Page, again, no disrespect, it's just the truth. He is the English version of Raymond Daniels, so he's the best fighter ever. He's the biggest fighter in the history of point karate that was able to mimic him at a higher level. Everybody else does it just at a lower level. So they all mimic Raymond too. That's my belief. Maybe I'm wrong. Call me stupid, because I don't think anybody's doing much different except for the extreme, which would be you throwing kicks. So everybody else fights just about the same. Oh, he's faster, he's slower, not just about the same. And then when you eliminate that, then you will have Ross Levine, which is fighting, he's like 1980 style. But it still works today. So that's it. There's only 2.5 styles. But they're faster than ever today. They can't hit you with power because they can't make a fist. The gloves don't allow you to bend your thumb. You can't bend your thumb. If you can't bend your thumb, that means you're slapping somebody. Am I wrong?
Right.
The gloves. Not all the gloves, but the gloves that are covered by the fingers. Can you bend the thumb?
No.
You can't. It's not the fault of the competitor. It's called faulty equipment, and everybody's using it. Name one person that you know that wraps his hands when fighting. Name one.
Raymond does.
Why?
Ross does.
Interesting. The ones that are going to try to punch you, for real.
Mm-hmm.
The hand wrap is for you to be able to protect yourself, because when you punch somebody hard, your arm and your wrist hurts. That's why boxers use that. It's for their protection.
Right.
So the point is that if this was the 80s, you would have to think who doesn't do it. So what they did was they took the equipment and they made it faulty because of Steve. And this is the reason why some promoters lie. They say, well, the reason why we can't have the contact like before is because of insurance purposes. So now little kids have to wear a chest protector, a headgear, a mouthpiece, shin guards, cup, and these boots. 9 out of 10 of these boots don't even bend in the ankle. So people trip. They're heavy. They don't even fit in the toes right. Faulty equipment. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I noticed when I try to put that stuff on. I can't make life fist with this. I would have to cut the thumb right here in the bend in order for me to make a fist.
Yeah. I personally don't use that. I use what we always
old school
use in the phone dip.
Yeah. Right, okay. And that's a hint. For whatever it's worth, Mr. Ortiz, maybe I'm wrong. And I might have, guys, if I'm wrong and I made a statement, please don't hold it against me because I'm really out of the loop. I'm this old bastard that used to do sport karate that's going to come back to do other stuff again. So what I said was, as it seems like, and this is going towards, again, this is a Latino thing and even a Northeast thing, but let's say Latino. I finished number 3, which would have been number 1 in 88. Manny Reyes Jr. did it in 2000. He actually became the first Latino to be number 1. Did you win number 1 last year?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, and the year before that, and this year, and
overall. Who was number 1 overall last year? Yeah.
NASCAR, me. 2014 overall grand, me.
You're not smiling, huh?
Who?
You're not smiling.
No.
Yo, if I was there, I'd be hugging and kissing you like my son. Because I didn't know this until I looked at the magazine. I looked at the ratings the other day. Do you know how big that is? The last person who did that, being a Latino, was Manny Reyes Jr. Before that, nobody had done it. So you're only the second one in the history of sport karate going back to Latinos being involved from the beginning, which is 1950s in competition, to be number 1. Thank you for representing all the razas.
I appreciate it.
Didn't Latino magazine call you? Yeah, right.
Well,
Wait, what are you laughing?
I had a few articles from Spain, from Mexico, from Puerto Rico, which we did.
Oh, so you mean to tell me that some people actually recognize that was a big event?
Yeah,
that's freaking incredible. Guys, those of you who are listening, please, I apologize for being so blunt and making it sound like I'm even almost chastising. That's not my intention. I'm just a frustrated guy who's a fan of martial arts, who cannot appreciate what is modern-day fighting except for a handful of people. And I'll say the handful of people right now, this is no secret. I enjoy Raymond Daniels, Ross Levine, and Justin Ortiz. Anybody else, they all gel together. I can't tell the difference. And they all look about the same. Because at least these guys have a different style. Similar but different in certain techniques at times, but they're different styles. When everybody else looks about the same.
Right.
You know? Am I wrong? I don't know. Maybe it's me, because I know I'm crazy. When you're fighting most people, aren't they doing about the same thing?
Yeah, everybody wants to do about the same thing. And everybody, I remember growing up, everybody was telling me, hey, do this with your hands, we got to work your hands. And I was like, no, man. My thing is my legs, man. I know I can beat these people using my legs. There's no doubt in my mind.
Kicking is supposed to be harder.
People, but for me, no. I mean, my leg is longer than my hand.
That's how I do.
It has great reach. and it had great power.
Speed and weight is power.
Now we see people now that I'm starting to show that kickers can actually go out there.
Some of the fans are starting to follow you.
Some of the people are starting to kick. Yeah.
Right. So basically, what's happening in 2014, when you become number one, then instead of just being on Raymond's jock and biting his style, and then getting on Ross Levine's jock and trying to bite his style, that means that you have people on your jock too now. That's what we call it in b-boying and breaking. If you're trying to bite my style, that means you're on my jock. All right, that's being the most blunt street terminology of it.
Yeah,
and the only way to get on your jock is when you win.
Well, I know, man. I'm from Boston, man. We used to use that terminology, but I agree, man. I didn't, for some reason, here's a good example. When I was fighting at one tournament, and I think I was 16, 17. Somebody.
By the way, how old are you now? So we know.
I'm 22 years old.
20. Okay. Wow, that was an important year for me. That means that you became. By the way, who was the youngest person to become number one master, and how old was he? Mafia Holloway, and he was 19. So you're the second youngest person to be number one.
Wasn't Pedro younger than him?
No, Pedro. Listen, and we're going to interview Pedro, and Pedro is an honest guy. He'll tell you, right?
Okay,
He's an honest kid. He'll tell
younger?
You. Yeah. Mafia started fighting black women at age 15.
Pedro, as far as age goes, Pedro is younger than Mafia. I know Mafia did it at a young age. I didn't know if Pedro did it at a younger age, but
no, younger age.
Around what, age 13 or 14?
Mafia became number one in the nation at age 19. Mafia Holloway, but that wasn't the Mafia Holloway that sold out disaster. That was doing. Oh, age 14. In 1982, I was 16 and I fought Mafia Holloway at the first national tournament that I competed in. But Mafia was just about 15 then.
Right.
So we were fighting as teenagers in the black belt division.
I had a lot of crossover between the two. I didn't know which one was.
Yeah, because they gel together. Because if you look at, for those of you who are fans of Pedro Xavier, please understand this. And Pedro, I bet you he'll say this. All Pedro Xavier is, in terms of kicking, is a person he trained with, which was Mafia, and the person that he tried to copy, which was Fast Feet. And he'll tell you that. He was the number one fan because Fast Feet Fontanez and Mafia Holloway changed sport karate forever by having a variety of techniques, which really included predominantly kicks. And the funny thing about it was that neither one of them kicked anything the same. They completely kicked different. Mafia was more like a capoeira fighter. And then things started to change once he started hanging out with Nasty Anderson. So he started, I can show you where things changed. But as a lightweight, I was his number one fan in the world, though. Number one. But when he fought Fast Feet, there was a problem. Fast Feet was taller and wasn't afraid. And that results weren't what people think. And there's some video out there to prove it. And I always looked at it as a third person. Now, Fast Feet is a character. I'm Jerry Fontanes. I'm just a fan. I was afraid. I was going to get my butt whooped. I was like I'm a mere mortal.
Yeah, when I was 16, my dad, when I was fighting, and my dad coached me, and somebody says, like, wow, Justin can fight with like Ross Levine and Raymond, and my dad looked at me and goes, man, Justin could beat them. My dad said that, and he said that with he was very passionate about it. He was right. The guy was shocked. But the thing was, it's like, I looked up to Ross, I looked up to Raymond, I looked up to these guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I always knew in the background that I'm going to have to fight these guys one day. For some reason, I knew that they were older than me. Raymond, I didn't think he was still going to be fighting, but of course he's still doing his thing. He's still really, he's still good. He's still great. And so I was like, but I just knew in my back of the head, I'm going to have to fight these guys. So I didn't want to be like anything like them. I wanted to be better than them. I wanted to try to do my own thing. But mainly with my leg, I knew for sure I had to do something with it. that was the only thing that I know I can use at the time.
Right. Well, it's very interesting because I was known as a kicker also because of the simple fact that I didn't think my hands, even like a box, it just made more sense that my legs were longer and stronger because I got very, very, very big legs. That's where my weight's at.
Right.
My upper body's thin, which was opposite from guys like Mafia. They had big upper bodies and like crackhead legs, you know. Billy Blanks too. They had really skinny legs. I didn't even know that. Like, technically speaking, I shouldn't be able to kick fast according to them because my legs are big. But to me, my legs got big because I was kicking a lot.
Right.
That's for muscle.
Same thing. My leg is longer than my torso is very short. My leg is long, and I got heavy legs, and you know. I said, how do you pick those things up? Well, I don't know.
Right. But I've also that we're Boricuas, and Boricuas have bodies.
They're used to the family, man. It's all better.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So. Hey, but it's interesting. Listen, again, and I want to apologize to you personally if for some reason I offend you because that's not my intentions. I mean, what I'm trying to do is educate a person who literally is an authority. Let's keep it real right now. I was not going to interview any of the people of today. And the reason is because they disappoint me. And I'm more how you call it, lenient than a lot of the people before me.
Right.
These guys, when they talk, I have to protect the modern day fighter and say, listen, it's not their fault. They're not the judges. Listen, it's not their fault. We left them and didn't teach them. Listen, it's not their fault. We did not give them the strategy of how to continue getting paid and being mainstream. It has nothing to do with what you would consider the congregation. It's the elders. We abandoned them. So I get on the case like that. Now, life gets in my way, and I've come out there and reinvented myself a few times, whether it was Fast Feet, Fontaines Karate, or the Rexu guy. People know the Rexu guy more than even the Fontaines Karate. I used to have 6 schools with 1,000 students. And somebody just put on Facebook how I brought 200 competitors to this tournament. Well, he didn't count the 400 spectators that I brought too. I love the sport. That's what saved my life. But I did it at a level so high that people could not fathom then, and they can't fathom it now. My school was on Broadway between 55th and 54th Street, Midtown Manhattan. I was on television, radio, newspapers, the Source magazine, you name it. Because I hired a public relations guy named Grandmaster Aaron Banks who already had done that for years in partnership with Madison Square Garden and everything else. I wasn't playing. But I also thought I was going to be dead by age 30. So I had to hurry up. And my son was born when I was 17. So at age 16, I had to lay out a plan.
Hey.
So the 6,500 square foot school, say it again?
I agree, man. When I was definitely like 18 around that time, you know, obviously competition for me was everything. You know, it was like I got to compete. Now, you know, I'm big on competition, but I'm a businessman first, competition second.
Well, somebody has to do it. I'm not a fan.
I'm doing seminars all over the world. I'm doing seminars nationally, internationally. I'm consulting. I'm a business and life coach. I'm also a, you know, school owner. So for me, you know, I'm very big with business. Don't get me wrong, when it's time to competition, and, you know, I still train. But that's because I have more time to train because I have the funds to do so. So like I tell everyone, I'm a businessman first, you know, competitor second. But when the competitor comes in, you know, nothing else matters.
So wouldn't it have been nice if you were able to read the book or listen to the videos or audios that said how to be a black belt in martial arts and business?
And business. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. You know, because like I tell people right now, you know, I'm not a black belt in business yet. You know, I still got a lot to learn. Just like I say to myself, you know, I still, you know, to this day, the only reason why it makes me successful in karate is that, you know, I stay a student of the game. I'm always willing to learn. I'm always staying hungry to learn new knowledge and new things that enhance my fighting. It's the same thing with business. I always try to learn new things and new ways of marketing, of financial, you know, financial knowledge is definitely important. And I think, I think there has to be an advocate or people out there, and that's what I do to some people is I tell them, like, listen, you need to know your business. You need to know finance. So because like right now, when it comes to I'm probably, like a yellow belt, an orange belt. I'm a beginner. I'm definitely not near a black belt. So it would be awesome for people to start advocating or start telling people, like, hey, this is the business to fund what you're doing in martial arts, and vice versa. Saying this is your martial arts that's going to help you fund your business.
All right, check this out. And again, I apologize because I've been caught up personally in life, and I'm apologizing to anyone who's listening to. What I'm trying to do in conjunction with the elders of the martial arts community, we love you guys as being our children that we abandoned. And what I mean by that is this: the business formula of how to become a successful martial arts, as we call it, a martial arts celebrity. That's really what it comes down to. Publicity with results equals celebrity. And celebrity is what people want to deal with, which is called the champions. The champions here, right? In the year 2000, my friend, very good friend, one of my best friends, Garth Benz, put together a team called Victory.
Right.
And when I looked at teams, I saw them as being just a bunch of people pretty much that are just financed by the same whatever the hell it is, but taken away from their individuality. So when a team was competing, they would yell for the team and not for the individual. So I said, Benz, we're going to take the name of the team and put it in the front. We're going to take the name of the player and put it in the back, like in any other regular sport. And we're going to take their nicknames and put that in the back. So people yelled for Face, which was Facey, Fast Feet, Mr. Benz, Mighty Joe, and Ninja. Simple basics. Because karate's backwards. They put the name of the team in the back, they put the name of the person in the front, and you can't even read it from a distance. So it's like, it didn't make any sense from an apparel standpoint. But Benz had a limited budget. I said, Benz, don't worry about it, I got my own budget. So I went to a company called Martial Arts Management Systems. They were looking for clients to do billing for the schools. So I said, listen, give me $5,000 for the year, and I'll get you clients, and you have billing for them for the rest of, as long as you keep them with the client. And that's what they did. They gave me $5,000. Then I told Benz, I'll be on Team Victory, no problem. I'll finance my own thing. And obviously I was winning. I won. My win ratio is pretty freaking ridiculous, and I don't understand. It's not because I'm good. It's because they suck. And I'm sorry to say it like that, but they suck. If they can't beat me, I've been out of shape since 1998, there's something wrong with those mothers. I don't get it. Anyhow, that's my belief. And this is a warning, guys. 50 years young, and next year I will be competing quite often. And wherever I go, if you do not keep your hands up and you block with your face, you will be a highlight reel. You will be freaking drooling and bleeding on the freaking floor if you block with your face. This goes to all the grandfathers out there, and maybe some of the young bucks. I got it, because it's all said and done, I am training for real. And I will be calling people out that I'm a fan of people. I took my son to the U.S. Open last year. He was completely embarrassed and disgusted. He could not believe how they were fighting. I said, BJ, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. I said, forget that part. Look at how they're moving. Look at the speed. Look at this. Look at that. He said, yeah, Dad, but they don't have basics, but no one taught them that. If your instructor can't teach you that, then how is he going to teach you? It's not their fault. However, I have a plan, I told him. And my son's 32. He'll be competing with me next year. I'm getting ready to do some interesting things to help the sport, because the sport is what saved my life. And in addition to that, I'm not alone. I have an army of people worldwide that are very, very good friends of mine, and we are all in the same boat. And it's not about separate, divide, and conquer. The opposite. It's unify and work as an industry. There's different ways to be successful, even in running the karate too. I'm going to go see a guy today that literally has only 22 students, but he has about 30 in a boot camp that he does. But he has a 3,000 square foot school. That means his school always looks empty, even if everybody's in there. Well, that can't be good. If your school is smaller and it looks crowded, then more people want to come. Or you got to learn marketing principles to double your student count, which is a whole other thing. But my point is that he's 50 years old. He has no children. He has no wife. He has 22 students in a 3,000 square foot school, and he's up at 5 in the morning doing boot camps from 6 o'clock. So how could he have a wife? He's broke, and he's never home. And he's a wonderful guy with good intentions. So I'm going to take him and tweak his thing. So I'm going to tell him, listen, we're going to double your student count. I should say, we're going to double your growth in 90 days. And you're going to pay me this amount of money to do that. If in 90 days it doesn't happen, then you get all the money back. But if it does, then you're going to pay me this. The most expensive you'll pay will be in the beginning when he has no money.
Yeah.
So this is what I'll tell him. Really simple. You're going to pay me $100 a month. If your growth does not double in 90 days, I'll give you the $300 back. I failed. If it does, then I want, depending on how much you have, I want 10% of the increase. In other words, I want to be able to earn $1,000 a month. So that means I would have to grow his business 10 times. You imagine that?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great. In other words, from 22 students to 220 students, him paying me $100 when he has 22 students is nothing. I mean, excuse me, it's more expensive than him paying me $1,000 when he has 220 students. And I'm going to show him how to pay I'm going to show him how to pay his rent with merchandise money at least 2 times a year, the entire rent. How to treat his store inside his school to be that. See, that's what I got good at, merchandising. That's why I ended up developing and making rec suits, real easy kicking suits. I have guys right now that literally are doing, and I'm going to announce it because this is all going to be announced publicly on Facebook starting tomorrow night. And there's a 48-hour clock. The name of the company now is called Fast Feet One. Because I'm Fast Feet, and number one is the logo.com. We have suits there available for retail from $109 as high as $199. And we're doing a 2-for-1 special. Buy one, get one free with free shipping. Now, there's going to be a 45-minute clock counting backwards for that offer. The suits are guaranteed to be in people's presence because they make custom, we got to make them 2 weeks before Christmas. They're going to put it on credit card. If for some reason we don't deliver the goods, they can easily charge it back. No problem.
Right.
Now, apparel is a humongous industry. Take P. Diddy and you take Jay-Z and J-Lo. They've made tens of millions of dollars when it comes to music. They make hundreds of millions of dollars when it comes to clothing. Karate doesn't even have clothing, but it did with rec suits. Today, people are walking around with their booty all shiny, with a satin uniform that sticks to your body. Forget about it. It's crazy. I have 3 people right now that are doing case studies of just washing those uniforms without even wearing them to see how they break apart. But these uniforms are what people all wear today because the person owns the industry. He owns the industry because he sponsors everybody, so everybody wears the uniforms. In the meantime, the people on the teams that get it for free have to get 3, 4, and 5 of them in a year because they always rip. My uniforms, people have them 15, 16, 17 years old, and they're still wearing them. They wear them to work out, but they wear those to compete. So to me, son pillo. But that's okay. I'm crazy anyway. So what I'm going to do, not because I want to, because every freaking day, can I get rec suits? You still make rec suits? Can I get? And I said, no, because I was heartbroken to what happened with me. My story is pretty crazy, but in 90 days, I lost 90% of my income. And I went from a $6,500 500 square foot mini mansion that if you put karate cribs with a K, you will see it, the inside and the outside, with the Hummer, the freaking Mercedes, and the nanny, and the English bulldog, and the 4 kids. To moving 4 times in 2 years, and the last time they moved without me, so now I'm divorced. They kept the nanny, they got rid of me, and that was 2 years ago. So if anyone hated rec suits, it was me. It destroyed my family, my whole life. But it's one of the businesses that I have to launch because the demand is so incredibly high. But I also make baseball, football, basketball, hockey, soccer, lacrosse. Now, the list of people who wore rec suits is pretty extensive, and I'm going to put that on the list. The testimonials that people have and stories. However, I tell you, Mr. Ortiz, you go to the website, take a look at that. It's $109 for that uniform, but it's going to last at least 10 times longer than the one you have, and you know that already because you already bought it back in the day, so let's say this is what happens. If I tell you, but if you send me a video testimonial or your favorite rec suit story, like the guy today was telling me, I can't afford, I still sleep with them right now. I said, "They your pajamas?" "Yeah." "Do you still use them for karate?" "Yeah." You go to the gym? What, you use them for the gym? "Yeah." "You walk down, so you wear them all the time?" "How old is that uniform?" He said, he didn't even think about it. He said, well, I got it in 2002. So that uniform's 13 freaking years old. He said, yeah. The same guy is also sponsored right now by a team. And he's getting these uniforms. He told me, man, I can't believe it. I'm already up to my 4th uniform because they all ripped. And I'm getting ready to get a 5th one. I said, wait a minute, what are you talking about? How about if you had to buy those uniforms? If you had to buy those uniforms and they were only $50, that means you're already deep into $200+, and the year's not even over. And you're saying that the one I got you, the one that you bought from me, you bought it 13 years ago? How many times have you worn back? I can't count. Wait a second. So those types of stories. Now, mind you, I'm not mentioning any names to anybody, and I'm not a player here. God bless everyone who's doing what they're doing. But my point is that there has to be alternatives to ways. And the information is this. JerryFontanes.com, I just bought it today again. I made a mistake. Guys who are listening, if you're an authority, if you want to be a brand, you must have your website with your name on it. And if you haven't, and if for some reason someone already owns that, then either put your middle name initial if you have one, or put your state. So Jerry Fontanes, NY, whatever it could have been. Or if you have a nickname. But the point is this. When my site, I made a mistake and it got expired, when I went to buy it again, Mr. Ortiz, take a wild guess how much JerryFontanes.com was worth when I tried to buy it again. Normally it takes it's like $10 to buy a domain name. Well, take a wild guess.
$1,000.
$1,250 was on auction on GoDaddy because I'm a keyword. It looks like I'm the only Jerry Fontanes in the world. Because I got thousands of videos and articles. And I'm not even active. I'm an inactive dude. But I market more than people who are active. I walked this year and I went to the Battle of Atlanta just because I was in town. And not one, 2 of the so-called modern day groups on video interviewed me. And it broke my heart because they walked past at least 15 people that they should have interviewed before me, man. But they don't even know those people. They were just old men to them. And I said, nah, man, I'm not going to let that happen. Just like in hip-hop, I was able to get Crazy Legs to bring Rocksteady back, and the rest is history. And those of you who are saying, yeah, he's talking all that crap, look it up. Fast Beat Fontanes, Rocksteady Crew. It's there. I don't have to lie to anybody. It's documented in many books in the history. Karate is bigger than that. It's a culture and a nation also, worldwide.
Yes, sir.
That the main, say it again? Am I wrong?
No, you're right. Keep going, man. I love it.
The problem is this. There's been a separation between nations, per se. I'm not going to take what would be modern-day sport karate and ever shit on it. No way. And I won't let anybody else do that either. They're doing their thing. But we're allowed to do our thing. And our thing is called, as I label it, sniper fighting. Sharp, precise, and on point. It's the point karate or the sport karate that you teach every student in class. Lock your knee, close your hand, stay on your feet. The thing that works in a ring or down the block. The same thing your dad has been doing for years and everybody else. Nothing big, but if we call it sport karate, like I did years ago, which wasn't the right thing, guys. I'm not saying this is not the right thing, but this is what I did. Out of frustration, I came up with a thing called Real Sport Karate Instructors Certification. This was back in 2008, and I did seminars and certifications in the UK, Puerto Rico, and throughout the United States. And these things, again, the videos are out there, guys. And what I was trying to do was share the information with the instructors so they could teach their students so the tournaments would be better. Because the instructors don't know what to do. So it starts with them. And I had a thing called, if you became a certified instructor, it was called RSKI. If you put in the word, it sounds like risky. So if you started your business, it was a risky business. And they paid $500 to get certified as a risky real sport karate instructor, level 1 instructor. And people said to me, wow, I never thought about that. And I said, you know what? I didn't think about that until I seen some dude teaching self-defense with a freaking cane, bro, with a cane. And people were paying that much and more to learn how to do self-defense with a cane. So I said, well, maybe they'll pay to learn how to do sport karate the right way. And then I said, you know what? That's offensive, bro. If you say this is real karate, that means you're just an old player hater, bro. And then I thought about the movie Star Wars. Star Wars ended. We know when it ends, when the freaking planet blows up and it's over with. But then they came up with this thing, and those were called sequels, right? Sequel 1. And then they came up with this thing called a prequel. A prequel. I'm watching right now my most freaking popular show, which I watch on Netflix, so it's recorded also, is Gotham. Have you seen Gotham?
Yes.
I love that show. So Gotham is before he becomes Batman. Holy crap. When Penguin is still skinny. And I say, yo, this is incredible. So I said, you know what? And again, Star Wars was the movie that made me think about this. I said, if they're doing sport karate today, and that's what it is, then what we did was something different. And we did sniper fighting. Sharp, precise, and on-point techniques. A guy from the 1980s, in order for him to score a point, and guys, if you heard this anywhere else, they got it from me, that I came up with this phrase, or this analogy. In the 80s, the ball had to go inside a hoop to get 2 points. In the 90s, all they had to do is hit the rim. If that happened in basketball, wouldn't the spectators start to leave? Imagine that. NBA said, no, the ball don't have to go to the hoop no more. Just dribble fancy and hit the rim. Doesn't make any sense, does it? Are you still there? Did I lose you?
No, I'm still there.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, but you win now. So that was the 1990s. Just get close enough and they'll give you a point. In 2000, just hit the backboard. Imagine that. You would not have basketball anymore, would you? And the people who would come to play that, they'll be playing a different sport. In 2010, all you have to do is throw the ball in the court. If someone kicks you today with a side kick, without locking their knee, and it hits your arm, 9 out of 10 times they give them 2 points. Am I wrong?
Right. No, you're right.
And that's like no one makes a big thing about it because this is just the way it is. So to me, that's called throwing the ball and they just hit the court. It used to be where if the punch came to you and like scraped your head without you bringing your hand back, with intentions of hitting, if you would have just swatted like you swatted a fly, they wouldn't give you points for that. And people say, but you hit him. I say, oh, wait, hold on a second. Imagine lining people up in class and just swinging like that with the arms, crazy like that. They don't do that because that's not a technique. It hit them, but it's not a technique. It has to be recognized as a curriculum for a sport to be a sport. So instead of fighting with people, my last attempt to try to help sport karate, as we know it, change the so-called standards was when I had a conversation with JW. And those of you who know who JW is, that's John Warley. They were clients of mine, National Karate, and I knew that he was the real authority. He has more schools than Larry Kelly. He's a senior of Larry Kelly. Excuse me, Larry Conahan, I apologize. So I spoke to him, and most people don't even have any idea. These are all former junior students, real Taekwondo. Hence, that's the reason why martial arts, since 1989, is prejudiced against anyone that's not Taekwondo. And I'll explain why. In 1988, if I kick you to the head, I get 1 point. But you could sweep me. And you have 3 seconds to get me. You might be a shorter kind of fighter, right? Pick up that leg and you see what's going to happen. Like your father probably still does now. In 1989, they said, no. If you throw the kick, it'll be 2 points. And you can't sweep no more. What? That's not fair. That means that you're making it prejudice for the Taekwondo guy to win. And those people, instead of complaining, they left. So now, if you mention the word sweep, somebody will turn green. They have no idea how to freaking even hit the floor. They can't sweep. So it's like they took and made themselves a specialist and eliminated the curriculum. Plus, depending on what part of the country you fought, if you picked up your leg really high, they kick you to the groin. And people say, well, I don't like the groin kick. Okay, I don't like the groin kick, which was tempo stylist predominantly. I don't like the groin kick. They got rid of that. So in 1984, when you're fighting in a tournament and you have to fight 9 times to win your division, this is how it was. And if you pick up your chamber too high, too slow, they kick it to the groin. Or if you throw a kick and, again, too slow, they'll grab you, sweep you, take you down. All those techniques were outlawed. So that means you can hop around with your leg up. Now, mind you, I'm a kicker. I'm not complaining about this thing. You know what I'm saying? If anyone would be happy that change would have been someone like me. But I didn't think that it was good because they made it limited. It's almost like saying you're boxing, but you can only throw a jab. You can't throw uppercuts anymore, and you can't throw hooks. You can throw a straight. So techniques now became limited based on the rules. And then they gave you equipment that doesn't really function. And then they gave you clothes that break all the time. And then they took away your ability to earn income by keeping you uneducated. And then they came up with teams and made you leave your school. So they think about the team and not where the school who trained you at gets credit. I always say if you have teams, have the person on the team wear the patch for his school. Because that's the person that taught them. It's not right. They're getting credit for things they never did. And it's not right. And they're breaking up families. How often do we see a kid who has great skills go to a tournament, and because he's not on the team, he loses?
Yeah.
Because they say he can't be good. He can't be good. Am I wrong?
Especially in forms of weapons, there's a lot of bias. A lot of, they give it to the seeds kind of thing. But yeah.
Okay, now check this out. If you have a person who competes and he's not on the team, that means by definition he can't be good. This is what it's telling people. Because if he was good, he'll be on the team. But then you have the people looking for somebody like that. In other words, making a discovery. Like in hip-hop, Eminem was in New York also. Bobito didn't sign him, but he had him come out on the record. But he didn't sign him, right? So when you get someone who has talent, who pretty much was ripped off because he wasn't on the team, that means that now you get credit. And it seems like the teams are schools themselves. To the point where you have promoters today that are sponsoring teams because the promoters don't have schools, and they make it seem like at least their team comes and it's like bringing their students to a tournament. That's a new business formula for promoters. But the thing about that, and again, I'm not anti anything that's different. I ask, well, what's the results? The result is that the promoter still has a job, teaches out of a YMCA, and has no students to really compete. So he's sponsoring people to compete on the team so they can promote his tournament. And they name the team sometimes the tournament name, which is fine if it worked. So if I follow him, that means I have to get a job, teach virtually for free in some YMCA, sponsor some people on the team to make it seem like my school's supporting that tournament. If that's the formula and I follow it, well, cool. But no, those guys barely make ends meet. 99% of the promoters don't make any money. And there's two reasons. Reason number one, they're picking venues that are too expensive. And they don't even make any sense. And I'll tell you why. Number two, they have so many prize trophies, awards, that it makes it almost impossible for them to earn a profit because the only sponsor 99% of the time is them. And even when they get a few sponsors, it seems like they're giving them a lot of money, but they're not really. And the reason they're not is because they're not businessmen giving them a reason. Why would someone support a booster club activity as opposed to a sport? What makes a sport a sport? Are spectators. A sport is a sport because of spectators. The players don't pay, they get paid. How do they get paid? By the spectators paying. That's simple business when it comes to entertainment or sports, which is entertainment sports. So what happens? They treat tournaments like what would be a dance contest. When you see TV shows like Dance Moms and stuff like that, that's one stage, right? These people travel all over the place. And who's in the audience? The family and friends. The booster club. If you throw a tournament and it's inside of a hotel, you can't even see anybody until the nighttime finals, where there's one stage. So it's not conducive to spectators. Why would they throw a tournament? Say it again? Oh, yes. Why would they throw a tournament?
Set them out in the open where people can view it.
Yeah, okay. So how about they treat it like the Olympics? We've all seen the Olympics, right?
Right.
It's a big gym floor, right? How many divisions are happening at the same time, or events? Whole bunch of them, right? You can even hear the music in the background sometimes while somebody else is doing something else. That's what karate is like. And everyone can see because they're on the bleachers, right? They're not on the floor. They're on the bleachers. So the majority of the karate tournaments years ago, whether they're on the Omni or whatever it was, they had bleachers that people could see from a height, from a height. So since they could see, you can have multiple events at the same time. And then they had another event, and they called it the nighttime finals. And people that were non-martial artists bought a ticket to a martial arts show, the same they would for the circus or something else. So when you went to the U.S. Open, it was called the U.S. Open, which was the eliminations, and the Battle of the Superstars. And the Battle of the Superstars was a separate event, today known as the Nighttime Finals. And who was there? The Booster Club was there as a base, but it also had non-martial artists, enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm.
There was a girl named Peaches that was a top fighter. She was one of Billy Blank's students. I saw Peaches 2 years in a row spectating while her classmate and friend, Mafia, was competing before she joined Billy Blank's school. So she actually became a sport karate fan by going to tournaments and eventually became a multiple world champion. That's what any sport has. spectators. So what happened? It's around 1992. I'm not on no team because I got my own money. So I go whenever I want to. Plus, I have been on some teams before, and I didn't like the idea that they try to just eliminate my physical skills to let somebody else win just because he had points. What? He freaking wants this point. He better beat me. What are you talking about? This is an individual sport. Don't give me this shit. Plus, I'm not making no money here. I'm making money at home. Actually, I'm losing money being here. Don't mess with me. So I didn't get on no damn team. You know, that's what happened to me. So I told them out in 1992, and they have this big team, and all these fighters that I knew that I loved as a fan, even though I competed with them, they were like frenemies, you know, like they were on stage making believe they were fighting. But they were splitting the money. So I'm like, what they doing? Do you know that the spectators at the time, some of them were paying $100 to be at ringside? And I said, wait a minute. If I paid $100 to see two fat men on stage making believe that they're freaking fighting, I'll be pissed off. I'll never come back. So I got up, and that's exactly what I said. No one pays freaking money for you to see you two fat asses fighting, dancing on stage. So, of course, people looked at me like, damn, why he said that? Because they were going to destroy the sport. The spectators were going to leave. They would never come back. So then I came back a few years after being disgusted myself. That's exactly what happened. If you have a tournament in the nighttime finals and you stop for a second, you say, guys, do me a favor. Please stand up. If you do not know anyone that competes here, meaning they're not a family or friend, and you just came here because you wanted to watch the martial arts event and you saw the promotions for it, it would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? But isn't that what a promoter does? A promoter promotes. Do they have radio stations in your town? That's a stupid question. There's radio stations in every town. So how about if you had a 100 spectator ticket giveaway to the radio station? Don't they always give away things? If you answer this, you're going to get that. Hey, get a free 2 tickets to the World Karate Champions right here in this town on this such. You need the general public to come. And then you ask them, listen, can we have the person who wins come and be interviewed on one of your shows? Yeah, why not? We never had that. They're always looking for something new. So there's so many things that can be done. And I'm going to say this publicly. The reason it's not happening is because the majority of the people and the powers that be are tired. Most of them should have retired already. And most of them thought when they were promoting 20-something years ago that they were going to make enough money that when they were in their 60s and 70s, they wouldn't have to be in the same grind, making less money than they did way back when there was at least a few sponsors. So they don't have any enthusiasm, passion, desire. So they listen to other people who have so-called fresh ideas. And then those fresh ideas don't work because the people who are coming up with the fresh ideas, the ones that have teams right now, the ones that have made the people on the teams fight in a certain way, and they call it speed fighting, the guys that themselves don't even have 100 students, and they work for a nonprofit organization, and they can only compete if somebody sponsors them, so they don't have a success with themselves. So they're the ones that came up with a great idea, because these guys are hungry for anybody who's willing to do something, because they can't. They're tired. They're old, man. They're tired. They've been doing this for 30 years, some even longer. So there's nobody in a position that can give them business model and best practices to make the industry as a whole benefit. And this is the last thing I'm going to say. Do you think maybe that martial arts has something to do with health and fitness?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Of course. Yeah.
I went to a tournament and competed, and 9 out of 10 people didn't even have water near the ring. Water. A basic thing. I gave them some of my water So I couldn't believe that the so-called coach didn't have any water, bro. Which we used to have two waters, one for the mouth and one for the body. You know? So in other words, one that we actually used that was bottled water, and then the one that was from the tap that went on your body in case you was overheating. But today, any sport in the world has nutrition involved in high performance. You cannot be a high performance athlete without having nutrition, or what would be considered high performance, nutrients and vitamins to make you perform. Karate is the only sport that when I go to the outside, they're selling equipment and boots and weapons, and I don't ever see any freaking nutrition. But those people who have nutritional companies would love to be investing in martial arts if somebody presented it to them. For example, have you ever heard of Gaspari Sports or Gaspari Fitness? Huh?
No.
Rich Gaspari, you have your hand. No, right? Rich Gaspari is a bodybuilder, and one of the people that he sponsored was Ronda Rousey, my favorite MMA fighter, by the way. And not just because she's cute, but that doesn't hurt. So there are sponsors of people. Red Bull sponsored B-boy battles all over the world. Imagine if you went to a tournament and there was a table with Red Bull.
Right.
Because it's consistent. Now, so many people might be drinking it, whether it's Rockstar, Red Bull, and again, I am not saying that that's even good for you, because there's cases against it. My point is that the industry is alone. They literally, it's like incest, almost. They don't ever deal with anybody else. And it's because most of those guys have never dealt in the real world. They live in the little karate world. They think they're masters and grandmasters in the real world. So someone like Jimmy Fan will come to me and say, "Yeah, over here I'm a star. Anywhere else I'm a boy," because no one knows him in the streets, in the general public, only in the martial arts world. In the meantime, martial arts is the biggest freaking industry that every other industry takes from. You got a fitness. You cannot watch a so-called program for fitness without them throwing some kicks and punches. They can't even kick. They can't even punch. They call it Kempo. Get out of here. If that Parker ever saw that as Kempo, he would have came out of his grave and whipped your butt. You're a fitness dude, bro. You know nothing about kicking and punching. And they use that, what's called cross-training. Like, get out of here. But my point is that the best is yet to come, and we have ideas. I'm not the only person. There's a lot of people like me, like Michael Dietrich, who is my partner in some of these endeavors that will help the business owner be able to do at least what he's done in the past. I asked Michael Dietrich, what was your best month, gross in your karate school? He said, I won't tell you that, but I'll tell you my best 2 days. I said, how much? He said, $40,000. He earned $40,000 in his karate school in 2 days. Now, how he did it, there's a formula to it, and we're going to expose things like that. And he's not the only one. I also have 5 martial arts millionaires that I'm interviewing in the next month that we're going to put together strategies that some people can copy. And some of you are saying, yeah, man, but it ain't about the money. Money is about the technique. Get out of here. It's about being professional. You can teach anybody whatever you want in terms of techniques, but if you're professional and you're able to earn income, then there's nothing wrong with that. When I was competing and I had 1,000 students, and I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars, none of my so-called friends in the martial arts business world were even competing. They were just getting fatter and going on their yachts and what have you. What was I doing? I was going to b-boy battles and karate tournaments because that's what I liked. So nobody said just because you make money, you can't go to tournaments like what you said. You can do whatever you want. It's your life. Don't let them tell you. People like Pedro Xavier have made a mistake. Even though Pedro has 300 students, so what? Why isn't he competing? His legacy has now been damaged. Because if I ask you, well, Pedro Xavier, because Pedro Xavier happens to be one of those guys that he was around not too long ago, so people know who he is. But when I ask people, have you ever seen him in person? No. Have you ever talked to him? No. Have you ever seen them fight in person? No. So I'm saying, wow. So my phone call to Pedro was, hey, buddy, you know, they know who you are, and you're not making a dime from it. Why don't you come out about 3 times a year and do some seminars to help them? Wouldn't that be nice? That's what it's about. Each one teach one. You're a star. You right now, I don't know if you have your website with your name on it, but please look it up. It'll cost you, and I can show you how to get it for $1.14 for 1 year. Those of you listening, listen up to me. You go over to a Google search and you put cheap domains. You're going to see 1 or 2 different advertisements. One of them will be GoDaddy. That GoDaddy cheap domain keyword search will give you to a 99-cent URL domain name for 1 year. The internet tax is 15 cents on that. As long as you do it from your phone, you pay $1.14 for 1 year. It could be your complete name. But I suggest you take your name, your .com, and put that on your uniform as a billboard. So, and then get the domain name, make a website that has a lead capture on it, and links to your social media. In other words, make yourself freaking professional. And if you want to hook up someone, do something like that with someone like me, I got a whole package for that. In addition to that, your app. This is business world today. If no one's going to do that for you, you have to learn how to do it for yourself. I'm telling you right now, guys, my name is Grandmaster Jerry Fasty Fontanez. I started martial arts in 1974. I'm one of the most talented people in the history of martial arts, but so freaking what? Nobody came knocking on my doors to do any work for me. Whatever I've done is based out of the sweat of my brow. I'm self-reliant. Thank God for that. There was 18 years of my martial arts career that was completely wiped away because life got in the way. And in the middle of that, I still won, supposedly, 7 world championships on some circuit, some here in the United States and somewhere around the world. In the meantime, all I was doing was selling uniforms. I'm the only martial arts competitor in the history of martial arts to be competing worldwide while selling my clothes worldwide. I'm not that smart, guys. I'm not that smart. But I followed the suit. Michael Jordan today is still making money from his Jordan clothing line made by Nike many years after he retired. And I'm old enough to know that Stan Smiths are the original basketball sneakers ever, and that's the first so-called licensing, also known as Converse. So those of you listening, guys, you could be millionaires in an industry like this, or at least not have to kiss somebody's butt to get a job. So you have talent. If you're a black belt, that means that you are a minority. People love to be around winners and champions, and I love you guys. But if you don't have a pot to piss in and the window to throw it out of, Clark Kent, Lois Lane. Lois Lane does not like Clark Kent. But when he's Superman, even though he's wearing some corny tights, she loves him. Everyone loves the champion. Those of you who are walking around now that used to be champions, remember who the hell you are. And stay tuned because we're going to find you. So just like Crazy Legs, you're not just Richie. You're the legend and the pioneers. And there's many of you guys, and I'm sorry that my generation did not continue with the bridge. So those before us, the ones of today, don't know them. So I am one of the bridges between the past and the present so we can go into the future. And that's what this is all about, Mr. Ortiz. And I apologize because I know that it took a different twist. I did not expect that. But you said a few things that really triggered off my mind, and I appreciate you. And I'm so, so happy and sorry that I didn't know you was number one. And congratulate you for that. And that's 2014.
It was a great interview we had. It was a great time. I appreciated everything. And of course, I actually learned a little bit of some stuff. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. Let me just ask you two more things, and then we can end this. And first thing is, Mr. Ortiz, is it possible in the future that we can revisit you and then maybe have me shut the hell up and answer some more questions? Would that be possible?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, man, I got my Facebook page. Just go on Justin Ortiz. I do a lot of my networking and my international kind of feed, and I'm getting my website together. That will be up soon. I'll let everybody know. But as for now, yeah, definitely hit me up on Facebook. Contact me. My email. It's
well, you know what? Just so you know, I apologize. I didn't tell you. To hear this interview, it'll be at a landing page called dojine.com/Ortiz. J. Ortiz, because we already did one Ortiz, which was Raul Ortiz, who was a Kung Fu guy, so he has his page already. And then there, I'm going to put any link that you want to anywhere that you want. And I also put a video, and I also put, in other words, it becomes like your business page.
Right, definitely.
And it'll be that'll be up to date.
They can contact me through my email, karateuniversity2016@gmail.com.
Again, that Karate University 2016, you said? No, 15.
At gmail.com. 16.
16, next year, okay. That will be a link on your page. Your Facebook will be linked to that. Some of the videos, maybe one video that's out there that I'll pick, that I like, I'll put that also. And then in the bottom of that, it'll be in this interview for the time being. And then if in your future you want to add something to it, like your website or what have you, then I'll re-edit it and add something else to it.
Awesome.
I'm trying to help.
What was the next question you got?
But that was the first question. The next question is, since we're ending it now, give out some shout-outs right now. So who you want to give shout-outs to?
First definitely shout-out has to be to my dad, Alberto Ortiz. Like we talked about him earlier, he's my inspiration. He was my motivation. He definitely made me the fighter I am. All my kids at Florida Sports Martial Arts Academy. Definitely my business partner, who happens to be my girlfriend, Tatiana Sutherland. Just a lot of people out there. My coaches like Don Rodriguez, Christopher Rappo, Coach Damon Gilbert, and all my people who follow me. From nationally to around the world, the people who follow me and give me a lot of love and support, and keep me doing what I love to do. So, and of course to the generation that made me I am, definitely to you, Ms. Fontanez. You were the kicker. You were the Puerto Rican that my dad had me look at and had me watch fight. And people like you, Pedro Xavier, even some things that I learned from Superfoot Bill Wallace. Definitely keeping the kicking alive, keeping kicking generations, and like Manny Reyes Jr. So thank you.
Outstanding. Well, there is one other thing.